on the TV now. Wow. Right. Okay. We have 3 mics going. Wow.
I'm about to record on here.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Steady. Flow.
Wow. Okay.
We've upgraded now.
Yeah.
Is the camera recording as well?
Yeah, the camera's recording. Okay.
We've upgraded, Grant.
We have upgraded. Look at that.
The power of connection, the power
Oh my
of who
gosh.
you know.
And just looking stuff up online.
Right. The idea of going to the graduate student lounge was good. I originally when I went home, I didn't. For some reason, nothing came to my head of pick this up, take this. You guys will see that. I mean, how different the two setups are. But I mean, hey,
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah. Well.
You sounding good? Can you hear me?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, really?
But it looks like everything's correct. So maybe it's an issue.
You turn up the headphone volume up there, top right, the 4.
Oh, right here?
No. These knobs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Test.
I think it should
Thomason.
be 1.
Oh. Test. Thomason. I'm 2.
Here's, you want to try these?
29 points.
I know, 29 points is insane.
Listen, I doubted.
Mm-hmm.
I doubted.
You were doubting?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't doubting, but I was more sick to my stomach. I didn't think this was actually real life. To anyone that watched it, Luden, that was accidental. The slip.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Jaw
that was
getting
just
hurt.
a defensive play, and
Yeah.
this was really that was awful.
I was watching Inside the NBA after, and they were talking about Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen Jr. Essentially, he set him up for that dunk. I'm not gonna put the blame on him, but the setup is as important as the finish in the league. You want to make sure that your teammate is protected. You want to make sure you're protected. Because John Morant, he's strong. He's going up like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a brutal fall. Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Prayers to him. I genuinely want him to come back. I want the series to be at least a little competitive. Mm-hmm. I want us to sweep. Don't get me wrong. I'm biased, but I don't want. There's a thing about the playoffs in the NBA. For me, it's like it's getting that rest time. The rest it can be a benefit, but it can also be a detriment.
Oh yeah.
Too much time off, your legs get, I guess, sore, tired, all the above, fatigued.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's the other? Who would we play if we win?
The Clippers or the Nuggets.
Oh, okay.
Right now, it's looking like the Clippers.
Oh, really? Okay, so that would be an easy one.
You'd be shocked.
Clippers are good this year?
The Clippers are good. They're sneaky.
They're sneaky.
James Harden, he's legit. He still is. Always
wow.
will be. Kawhi's back.
Mm-hmm.
I think better than ever. It seems like he's taking his time a lot more. I think now might be his prime years. You could say maybe Toronto might have been his prime years, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like fine wine. But a rainy day we have in OKC here.
Oh my gosh. It's unlike LA where everyone, at least people here will, drive when it's rainy.
Yeah.
When it's LA and there's any kind of rain whatsoever, people freak out on the interstates.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the opposite problem here. Everybody drives when it rains.
Yeah.
There's no one walking. All the lots are full. Can't park anywhere.
Campus was beautiful today. This is my first time. So, for everyone watching, we're at the University of Oklahoma, Gaylord College. Thank you to Gaylord. Well, the setup process was long, but it was. I've been here. I've been in here. Back in the day, I've recorded podcasts in here. I've had a lot of friends that have gone through here. One of my closest friends is a Gaylord king. You know what I mean? Like he this was his bread and butter. So
Mm-hmm.
it's cool to actually be able to utilize the college. But I mean, even during setup, you were talking about how some universities, a majority of universities, like how each university, like each college is its separate entity.
Yeah, I actually wrote a bit about that in that article that I published on my website a while ago and on my LinkedIn.
Where you're critical of that?
Yeah, I'm pretty critical of. It's more so like the reasoning, like we've lost the reasoning behind education, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I was always grew up with like a holistic point of view. Like it's not just like books, academics. It's also like physical things is very important to learn too. Like that's why sports are important. And then on top of that, like social engagement, civic duty, that sort of stuff. And and the reasoning behind like how we got here, and you don't necessarily learn that. OU actually is focused, and so that's what you would get a lot from a liberal arts degree. And OU is actually making it to where the gen ed is basically a liberal arts degree. I don't know if that's what it was from your experience.
Yes, in a sense, but with Price, okay, so Price College was different. And let me tell you how. So you declare maybe sophomore year. You declare your sophomore year. You find out, okay, what type of business you want to do. For me, I was lucky. I started biomedical engineering. Me and my buddy said, oh, do we really want to do this anymore? Mm-hmm. So we switched up. Same. It was one of those things where it's like you have to figure out what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it took some time, but at the same time, it was helpful because I had already gotten some of those prerequisites out, mm-hmm. so that was good, especially from coming to engineering to business. Mm-hmm. It's I mean, obviously it's a lot easier of a process than going the other direction. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough because I wish the process was a lot easier, was a lot smoother. Mm-hmm. But I think it needs to be something where you are going through a little of a rough patch mm-hmm. to get everything finalized mm-hmm. because it helps you find what major you want to be in, what college or you know what I mean, what college you want to be basically sat at for 4 years or at least 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, well, at least OU, from the conversations I've had with people, nowadays you're choosing the college you're joining before you even step on campus. A lot of people
are. Yeah, that's how it was for me.
Yeah, and which is different since I went to a liberal arts college. As long as I had the prerequisite class, I could take any class I want on any department. And if it was for other reasons, I didn't even have to have the prerequisite as long as I got the permission of the professor.
Yeah.
So
What's like an example of that? Like, what did you end up taking?
Well, like for my major, for classics, I had to take Greek philosophy, and there was a ancient Greek philosophy, and there was a prerequisite that was required for it. But because I was a classics major, I knew all the history of it, and I had a general idea of what like the philosophical ideas were, but I didn't have that like philosophy prerequisite for the class. But I'm in the classics department, and I went to a unique situation where I was taking classes at other colleges because 5 colleges, one loosely based university system like Oxford. Mm-hmm. So I was taking a lot of my history classes over at Pomona, who has a top history program. My professor, one of my favorite professors, who was my reader, Kime, was the Greek historian there. And I would go over this philosophy class, and like they're not necessarily like what I like studying about classics was like, okay, how did these people how did they use this philosophy to like go for the good life? Because that was kind of like their focus,
right?
And this is more like, okay, what's the actual argument here, and like, does the argument make sense? And then I bring up, well, he's making a presumption that we all have souls. I think that was Aristotle, how like a deer has a deer soul kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And this kid was like, well, we can say anything doesn't exist, like we can like say, how do you really know something exists? Almost anything. And I was like, okay, well, this was a big presumption, presumption of Aristotle or whoever it was, or Plato, and we just kind of glossed over it a little bit. But we didn't really have department based like, or college-based, like, things that only, like, those students could do. Like, Price has trading desk, right, where you can go on Bloomberg terminals, that sort of stuff. And I doubt Gaylord students could necessarily use that. Gaylord has all this podcast equipment. Price College, like, us have trouble, we're struggling. We can't check out all of the equipment, but we could use the studio, even though they don't necessarily like it. Whereas if we had this stuff at my college, or even the 5Cs, it could be open to everyone.
Like, easily shared.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
So, we didn't really have any of that kind of equipment because it's not as specialized. And that's the thing where, like, the argument for a liberal arts education starts to break down is when you talk about specialization.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest thing, I was talking to an engineer, Jackson Robbins, and that was the big thing he was talking about was, well, like, it would take, like, 7 years to become an engineer then. If you did, like, a liberal arts, they already do so many more hours to get their degree than the average university student. But unless you're going into engineering or some sort of, like, highly specialized STEM field, like, there's not really, I really think that a well-rounded education would be more suited to going into the world. And that's what I argue, just because you have a broader knowledge base, unless you're because, academics teach for you to become a PhD. And if you're a PhD, you're an expert on one uber-specific program.
Or that's funny you say that. You know Jordan Peterson? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you do. I don't even know why I asked that. Everybody knows this man. But he kind of, at least I think it was him. If I'm wrong and it was somebody else who was talking about this or made this point, then my bad. But I think he was saying about how, like, it's a lot of rich and, like, wealthy families will send their kids to get liberal arts degrees, essentially, because you're learning more or less how to communicate effectively at the end of the day, how to become highly proficient in reading as well as in writing, public speaking, those kinds of things. And that essentially, from his perspective, he thinks that these families who are doing that, who are encouraging their kids to kind of go this route instead of the more specialized path, obviously, like, think that there's some kind of an advantage to that. So it kind of speaks to the point you're making where it maybe makes you more well-rounded and kind of adaptable in a sense. And then after that, you can kind of specialize as you go into, like, I don't know, maybe you go get your MBA after that, or you go to law school or whatever it is, or pursue an engineering track. But
what I'm saying is, what is that advantage? Because if you really look at it in a sense of, or if you're really trying to separate the two, if you're looking at a liberal arts degree compared to, any other genre or any other category, like, what makes it so specialized in the world we live in? I feel like I don't even know how to. If you guys will understand this, I was at work. I was at Commonplace the other day, and there was a bingo, and I was just looking at how everyone was enjoying their life. They were enjoying their day, and I was thinking, I don't know. I stand there I sit there and I just think, oh, what led you to this point in your day? I'm thinking, what's your past? Give me some context on yourself. What did you study when you were in college? I think about stuff like that because it's curious. I'm curious to see, how did that lead you to live the life you're living right now?
Right.
So do you think a lot of families consider that an advantage in a sense where, oh, I want my daughter or I want my son to grow up to be a calm, cool, collected individual that's an academic, or I want my child to grow up and get into the medical field, do what you want to do, be a doctor if that's your goal. But I want you to live a life that's lavish. I want you to not have any worries in the world. Yes, every family, every parent has their own kind of goal for their offspring in a sense. But, like, you know what I mean? Do you think that's everyone's consideration when they think this is the biggest advantage, or do you think there's?
Well, I think the heart of the advantage is that pretty much regardless of what you go into, and a lot of people will, like, specialize in something in school and then go to work doing something else anyway. But that piece of it aside, I think that pretty much regardless of what you're going to end up doing, you're going to need skills like sales and negotiation, particularly, just in order to advocate for yourself. Like, even if say you're a plumber, like, you still have to advertise your services. You have to be able to speak and effectively communicate, or maybe in, like, negotiations with an employer or that kind of situation when you're trying to rise to the top of an organization. Like, I just think that the skills that you learn in the liberal arts, like track, are more, I don't know, I guess do you have any thoughts on that? Or is that like resonating with kind of what your perspective was? Or do you look at it a bit differently?
So the thing that's come to mind, and I had a conversation with President Harris about this, is...
Name drop.
Yeah.
Cool guy.
Yeah.
I would name drop him too.
Yeah.
Like Flex.
Homie's tough. I have a lot of respect for a lot of people. He has taught me so much, and I'm sure as he's taught you, like I've never a figure that understands the importance of education, the importance of togetherness. I don't know. He's driven this university to new heights. I think there's bigger things out there for him too.
Yeah.
So.
But one of the things we talked about because we were talking about the paper that I was writing is how the culture from both sides kind of the coin has basically made the college and higher education very transactional. So most parents just want their kids to go to college to get a good job.
To get qualified to work. Yeah,
to get a good job. And then that's basically what governments want too. But, if you dig down, they also want their kids to be like, good citizens of the state and have civic responsibility and take care of their communities. But that's not like the first thing that comes to mind. And so there's kind of a problem in university system and college systems where it's like, oh yeah, you're going to college to get a job, and so you can kind of see it a little bit in some stories where these kids are like nowadays saying, oh, I'm paying your salary to the professor, that sort of stuff. You see that with grade inflation being how it is, where, just an example, OU Law School sets a B+ curve for 1Ls. Well, why is it B+? Well, maybe OCU and Tulsa is a B. So if you're doing an apples and apples comparison and you don't know anything about the schools really and like their grading structures, and it's between a Tulsa kid and an OU kid, on average that OU kid's going to have a higher GPA. And that does go into the hiring decision at least a little bit, right? And so there's just a lot of incentives from the university and that's where you get into kind of like, okay, what is the actual value of education that I think that we've kind of strayed to? And that's the liberal arts education is what was taught since Oxford University was really founded as, one of the, I think the first university was founded in Italy in like the 1300s or something like that. Yeah, but like when Oxford was founded and like we're kind of based off of that system, that's what the founding fathers of America, that's how they studied. They were learning, it's like why we got to this point in our communities, our civic life, on top of like the specialized technical knowledge that you might need to learn as well.
Analytics and
and so you go like analytics. That reason why is just so important, I think, and liberal arts I think does a good job of telling you like almost why it's important that you learn history, that you learn philosophy, while you learn government on top of doing your marketable degree like econ. My school was 50% economics majors, and most of us went into finance or consulting. And on top of that, with what you said about, a lot of people go and work in jobs that don't really have anything to do with their degrees.
Right.
And it's like, from a certain standpoint, the marketplace for employment, if you're self-determined, you can go get a job. It's really hard, to get past that hurdle to actually get hired. But
especially right now.
Yeah, especially right now. But if you're, if you're proactive enough from, like, especially during college in doing that, especially during summers and internships, because I think at least the sentiment I get from a lot of university students, especially at OU, is that a lot of times their summers during school, they don't necessarily work. They might do, like, lifeguarding. They do those like summer jobs that are kind of like prototypical, but it's not like they're going and interning at like banks.
Right,
and
potential placements where you could get like a return offer for full
whereas
time. Yeah.
Literally first month first month or two I walk into school, one of my mentors, Roma, who is a badass, she's like, okay, freshman, sophomore summer, what you do is you just go and intern anywhere, get some experience. Second, try to figure out something that you'd be interested, go intern there, and then
I'm a
summer,
huge advocate for interning.
yeah.
I don't see why you would. I don't see the benefit in having a summer and you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
What are you sitting there for? Like,
Yeah.
no offense. You can go. Yes, you can go get a job. I mean, you can go get a job at a restaurant. You can go be a what's it called, cart boy at a golf course. You can go do this. You know what I mean? There's several different ways to gain that type of passive income in a sense.
Yeah.
But why would you not just attempt to do that while also gaining knowledge at the same time?
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like it's
Yeah.
part of life. You need to be able to get yourself out there, especially in things that you're passionate about.
Yeah. Well, in our entrepreneurship class last semester, those kids were really talking about how they really felt like career services needed to be more entrenched in the college life.
Right.
And I could get behind that. My career services, we're a small school. We have 1,300, and the joke about us is that we're the pre-professional school. We're all not alcoholics. Well, we are alcoholics, but we're all workaholics for the most part, and very very gung-ho about like all of that, wanting to go and do something, but at least from the university, it's like it's hard. I mean, you have 40,000 kids on OU's campus. I think that includes graduate students, but
I believe so, yeah.
Roughly around 50,000 kids that are all students here,
And it's growing.
And
it's continuously growing.
And so how do you build out a career services that is so entrenched in, and it had to probably be by college, but basically to where it's like almost another like a professional development class.
Yeah.
Where like basically you have this one class that's going on all 4 years, where it's like, hey, like this, you should start looking at look at internships, look at jobs, like if this is what's important to you. And I think that would also help with, because you have that art. I mean, this is a big thing with the people like politically right. They're more like, college is for a job. It's for a job. Like, why do we have like
more practical?
Why do we have languages? Like, how do you get a job in a language? And it's like, well, there are jobs. They're just not. There might not be many that
you can teach language.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, well, if you had someone there that was helping you actually look for jobs, then that argument it weakens.
Right, yeah.
Because,
it would hold less weight for
yeah,
sure.
because, I mean, even if your job wasn't necessarily having to do with you learning how to speak Mandarin, like, you would have a job. And, there's a joke I saw, I think it was on, like, YouTube or something like that. No, it's a commercial. I think it's Indeed.com commercial, where this girl has, like, 10 years of experience in hospitality, and this guy's like, oh, no, you have to have a college degree. And she's like, what's your degree? He's like, dance. And he's like working at a hospital.
I know exactly what you're talking. I saw that yesterday. I saw that yesterday.
And so
I was like, huh.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like,
Gets you thinking.
yeah, and I mean, and so there's kind of like I don't know, it's like a push-pull, because it's like why does that college degree necessarily matter if she has the experience? And so there's actually a huge argument about how, like, experience is the best teacher. And so, like, well, if for business, right, or at least for work, experience is the best for work, right? I mean, you don't necessarily learn work experience from college. I get college is supposed to be a signal, an economic signal, saying you're going to put in work.
Time and effort, yeah.
Yeah, time and effort. I mean, there's a lot of the finance literature and research actually talks about how most people think of it as an economic signal. So,
Really?
yeah. And so, if it's just an economic signal and it's just like you're just trying to get a degree, some sort of degree of some sort, and then you go off into the workplace or into life and you have to make your way, like, why not make the education, more liberal arts focused, to where it's like, oh, they're learning why it's important to have civic duty in their communities, and all that and that sort of stuff. And
Right.
especially in the digital age, that's one thing I was actually thinking of as a topic for us is civic duty, because at least from growing up, like with the digitization of our lives, right? I mean, we're the first digital natives. I really think there's kind of been a globalization of morals, to where it's like, I care about the earth and the environment, which is great, but then they're not taking care of their actual, like, local community.
Yeah.
and it's like you need to probably focus on stuff where you'll have more of an actual impact rather than kind of, I don't know, posting trolls on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, trolls, sure. I don't have really any opposition to like broader systemic critiques either. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I do appreciate like you pointing out the contradiction. Like I would be opposed to that. I think you should be really kind of trying to integrate at all stages these improvements in your own life, community, and then globally as well. Like there's certainly, I don't know, it's hard to like talk about global issues. You feel like you can't really play any kind of role or have any impact just by your actions or even your words. But I mean, I think it's still good to be informed and to, you know, try your best to know what's going on with the world and to call attention to improvements that you think should be made. But I definitely take seriously your point about the criticalness of focusing on
well, if you have like a cause, right, and it's like, well, like what you said, you can't really affect it globally, but you have your opinions, which are valid, like in all of that, and you want to share them.
Valid and sound.
Yeah, if you want to.
I made sure.
But yeah, exactly. But it's like, okay, well, where can you take responsibility to help this?
Yeah.
And where you can start taking responsibility for that is your local community. And if you do a good enough job, then you probably can get more responsibility and you take over your county and then it's state. Like it's like, yeah, you want, you know, maybe you can't initially take over like nationally this responsibility. Maybe sometimes you can if something happens. But if you're like passionate about something and like you're wanting to see it change, like you should probably look in your own like neighborhood and block first and then just start like taking your steps and taking on the responsibility to help those people or help that in that area, and then keep on taking on the responsibility.
For sure.
Do you think people think too big too early a lot of the times, or do you think that's a good trait to have, or do you think that it can kind of blind you?
I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
like if it's business, like if you're trying to create a product, like having the big idea I think is very important. If it's social issues, like one of the things I had trouble with, I think it was in 2020, maybe it was 2018, was it Bloomberg put like 50 million or put in like a bunch of $1 million into the fourth district, that's here, but like the district in downtown Oklahoma City. And I'm just kind of like, I personally don't like that a New York billionaire is coming and telling, I mean, I'm sure the people in Wisconsin felt the same about Elon Musk.
Right.
But I don't like that.
They clearly did.
Clearly, yeah. I don't like that this guy is coming and like basically trying to swing to what he favors for Oklahomans. Like it should be Oklahomans who are deciding that. And so like socially, I think it's a lot harder to go for like for the home run.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's possible, but it is hard. And so hit it like if you wanted to like make sure you were having an impact, because I think that's the big thing is like you don't know, like that's one of the things people don't like about charities is that they don't think that they actually have that impact. But if you were going to like focus on like, hey, I actually want to help do this or help these people or help whatever, like actually focusing in on, okay, where can I have the most impact? And typically that's going to be with your friends and family first.
Yes.
Your neighborhood, your local communities.
And then that's when you have a bigger
and honestly, I think that would help the kind of the problem that a lot of us in our generation have. I'm currently reading The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. So do you guys know why the generation from World War II is called the Lost Generation? World War I is called the Lost Generation?
No.
That's like immediately before. Oh, you just said that. Never mind. You corrected yourself.
Yeah, World War I, yeah. So they're called the Lost Generation because after the most bloody war with modern war, the first modern warfare and trench warfare where it was just absolutely brutal, they were called the Lost Generation, and Ernest Hemingway's like editor or some girl he knew coined the term actually that he used it, but they said.
And you think that applies to us as well?
Yeah, well, they had basically a meaningless epic. Like they didn't know what the point of anything is, and he highlights this with the expatriate Americans and Brits that are in Paris, which he was, and he just talks about how it's kind of like they would drink, they would party, he would work a little bit, for a journalism for some sort of like paper or something, but that was kind of what was like, they just kind of didn't know what to do with life after that war. It was so brutal. And I think like with our generation, that kind of is also a problem. Things, what is it? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Like that's kind of the saying.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and so it's very similar sentiment. And but I think if our generation, because we're wanting to be active and we're like trying to find how we can help, right? And a lot of it is like, well, the baby boomers were like the largest generation ever or something like that, and so. They're the ones in charge still, but if you can just take that single step and say, okay, I can help this person.
But do you think it's more of a, it's more of a, there's no change incoming? There's no type of advancement in technology, advancement in fashion, advancement in the arts that could kind of dig us out of that hole of the whole idea of, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know what career am I going to have that's going to fulfill me as an individual for the next 40 to 50 years before I retire. And not even 40 to 50, but even like 20 to 30. A lot of people are wanting to retire early. They're wanting to kind of get that vacation home, get out per se. Do you think we can ever, if that's the mindset that our generation has kind of established in the year 2025, is there any change coming?
It's like the whole escape the rat race mentality.
I mean, pretty much, because I'll be honest with you, and I'm sure the both of you have as well, talked to many of your, like our peers, talked to a lot of just people around our age that, they know what they're doing for, I don't know, the next couple of years, but they have no idea how it's going to pan out. They have no idea if they're going to change up within the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
it is a change because post World War II, we had the company man. So it wasn't uncommon in the 50s and 60s where you had someone who had worked at a company, a factory, like IBM or something for their whole life.
Yeah.
And
now you've got like the gig worker.
Yeah, 80s, 90s, that started to really shift and change to where now, like in software and tech, you don't get promoted unless you go to another company.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're always switching companies. I mean, that's the big thing there in that industry. In terms of like generational change, like escaping the rat, I think the thing that came to mind was, I think you have to have a clear idea of what your values are and what you want in life. Because there's some people that want the stability of that 9 to 5, working for a big company.
That's gross.
That sort of thing. They just want to know they have like that salary. They have to work this amount of time.
Yeah.
I have some friends that are like that. And there's
It's
definitely
like a certain stability to it that it doesn't like necessarily attract me, but I can see how it would attract someone
it's
of a different.
Well, if you read Nassim Taleb,
temperament.
it's a fake stability because that company could go under any time.
Well, sure, but then is there ever any real stability then?
Why would you want to do that though?
No.
Like
Why would you want to do it?
A 9 to 5. Be for real with me.
Well, because it's security. So like we've all done at least 1 year of law school, right? So we kind of have like an idea of like the legal scene, the paths that you take after school. Like you can go the firm route, big law. You can go into working for the government. You can do
who said that
public
was?
interest.
But who said that's how it was supposed to be though?
What do you mean?
Like, why do you have to go into say you have your own firm? No, at this point, you don't actually have your own firm.
Well, that's an option. You could start your own, but
you could start your own. But at that point, you'll make your own hours. When you make your own hours, that's when you're like, oh, I'm still doing work from this time to this time.
Right, but in order to build a successful firm, the hours that you're going to set for yourself are going to be more than your 9 to 5 would have been. And so, I mean, I guess that a lot of people might just not be willing to do that extra work.
But it would be at your leisure, in a sense.
But if you want to make it successful, you would kind of have to. You wouldn't be allowed to allow yourself that much leisure time. I mean, I guess like if you're just trying to like coast, you're trying to make enough to survive. You wouldn't have to.
I'm not even saying just coasting. I'm saying, why can't you put in as much work as, say, someone that is doing that 9 to 5, but you're in the luxury of having, being able to have a vacation whenever you want, being able to do this whenever you want. You can still put in the work, but it's
Well, it's just more work. Like, you can schedule when you do it. I agree with you about that, but you have to do way more because it's just you. You've started your own thing. You have to do everything on your own.
Here's my thing about a 9 to 5. I feel like you're in a cage.
I don't disagree with you.
And I the thing about a 9 to 5 is, why would you? Here's my mindset. All three of us, we're gonna have to work for someone at one point in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point in our lives, and I think that's where the difference maker is. We're understanding that that's a learning stage in our life.
Right, an opportunity to kind of...
I'm watching how they move. I'm watching
Exactly.
their mannerisms. I'm watching how they eat. I'm watching how they drink. I'm literally watching how they walk through a hallway.
Yeah.
But the reason is because I want to do it 10 times better,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I feel like that's something that a lot of people... I think that's the separation between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, instead of using it as a learning moment, and maybe, yes, the experience could be terrible. Maybe the experience is something that you never even saw yourself doing. But at the same time, okay, I'm fine with doing that. Mm-hmm. You can put me in any place. You can put me in any position. I will learn like a sponge. Like, I will soak up all the information. But at the same time, I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life because I want to level up. And I think that's what I think that mentality needs to be. It needs to be rubbed off.
I don't think so, bro.
In a way, bro.
You're an ambitious guy. Like, and we surround ourselves with like the same kind of people. We're all that way, but I don't think everyone can be that way. Like, I just don't think we're all wired in the same.
That kind of goes back to education too, because there's kids who, like, I think about this with Cameron University, which is a small college in Lawton. It's like, I have so many kids, dirt floors, or what they grew up, friends. I mean, they grew up with dirt floors in their home.
Yeah.
Right? None of their family ever went to college. And if they had the opportunity, because Oklahoma basically pays for it, to be able, and like they can go cheaply to Cameron and graduate in 2 years with an accounting degree, like, they're probably staying in Southwest Oklahoma with an accounting degree because now they're able to have a stable life and be able to make it better for their kids. Like, there is definitely kind of a...
like incremental.
Yeah, well, it's all about risk, right? And some people just don't don't necessarily understand the different risks that are associated with the choices. Because it's like with with us being ambitious as we are, it's like, okay, like, we understand that, like, we're going to shoot for the moon. Hopefully we'll land among the stars, but we easily could end up in the Marianas Trench.
Yeah.
You know, but like, we're not going to, you know, we're going to work, we're going to work hard enough and figure it out to where that's not going to happen. And some people are like, bro, like, I've lived in the Marianas Trench. I don't want to end up there whatsoever. And so even though I'm not going to have as big of a reward, I know the risk I'm taking by going and working for this accounting firm as an accountant at this firm for a 9 to 5.
I definitely think that's a piece of it, because the risk appetite, I mean, plays a critical role. And then there's also, I don't know, I just don't know if everyone can, like, is actually able, like, full stop. I get what you're saying, and I'm sure it can rub off on some. Maybe for some people it's a learned skill, but I don't know if that's the case for everyone.
I think it's more of a want.
Especially, like, in the economy in which we live. Like, we can't all do that. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand. And personalities are different. Everyone in this world is not. No, there's not one person in this world that's the same. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's a fair race to the finish line. You can, if you really, really, really wanted to push yourself, if you really wanted to make that next move, if you wanted to get to that point where you never saw yourself 5 years ago, you know what I mean? You really could. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, not everyone is built for that, but at the same time, if you really wanted to, you can practice and you can condition yourself to that point. And I think that, and hear me out. What I mean by that is, you can genuinely open the books up. You can read. You can do the research. Something my parents would always tell me is, like, just search it.
Well, you can read. But a massive portion of our population in this country is barely above a third grade reading level.
I understand. But what I'm saying is, and I think, for the context of the conversation, what we were discussing, what we're targeting is more so those that are in the positions that can, but yet
Who
just
don't.
but yet just decide not. They choose not to. They choose to back
Sure.
up.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
being selfish or condescending in the sense where I'm saying, oh, just because
pull
you wait.
yourself up by
Yeah,
your
no,
bootstraps. Yeah.
bro.
No,
Everyone.
I hear you now.
I actually
I get what you're
agree
saying
with
more
you
clearly.
from even a morality standpoint. I mean, there's a parable from the Bible that actually specifically
Parable of the
talks
talents.
about that. Yeah, the parable of the talents, right? Where it's like, give you 5, he brought back 5. He was
Yes.
given 2, he brought back 2 more. And the person with 1 hid it, and he was angry, being like, just do something with it. But it's like, with whatever blessings or whatever capabilities you have in this life, it's almost a moral necessity and argument that you do something good with it.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. You are built and I know you're saying not everyone's built the same, but everyone is built with a certain talent, with a certain knowledge, with a certain personality, with a certain kindness, a genuine heart to go out there and make a change. I believe that everyone in this world can make a change. I hear what you're saying. Not everyone has the resources to do everything the same way.
Well, no, but now I understand what y'all mean. So let's get into it. Well, when it comes to that, do you think, to what extent do you have a moral obligation in some sense to use the talents that you have? And how do you really know whether you're doing that or whether you're doing that optimally or could be improving?
Even with the example
I'm
I
sure you could always be
with the kid that goes to camera as a first gen, like, he's using the talents and capabilities that he's been given to help his family have a better life. And I would say that's a very, like, impressive and morally good thing to do. And then I would.
So do you think it's by your own standard? Like, it's if you feel that you're living up to what your potential is?
I wouldn't necessarily. I would say.
Or probably like the people around you have input on that too.
I would go back to my whole how I view the world in terms of honor. I probably explained this to you, but I think of it as I learned this in school. But basically,
isn't this ancient
Greek? Yeah. So basically, it's the way I was taught it is it's concentric circles of relationships, and so it's like, what is your relationship between you, yourself, God, your family, friends, community, strangers, and like the further you go out, it's definitely like
animals, plants, rocks.
The more attenuated, right? It's like, okay, those aren't as important as the ones in the circle, and I think you have to take all of those relationships basically into consideration if you think you're doing the most with what you have. Playing the cards that you're dealt. I guess it would be like the phrase.
I love that
for
saying.
it.
I love that saying.
And then you can flip that with like the Nepo kids who, there's those rich kids who are, 18, jet setting off to Paris and all this stuff, and they're not doing anything for their communities, and they're just going to live off that. And there's a reason why we, as a society, we don't like that. Like, we don't mind that their family has money necessarily.
What are you doing?
But the entitlement.
But like, what are you doing with it, and how are you interacting with all of those different relationships with it? And like, at a certain point, if you're not doing it, then people are going to hopefully point at that and be like, that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, you haven't, like, if you're born into a wealthy family, you almost have like an obligation as like almost like an aristocratic sense to basically have responsibility for that community that helped bore that wealth.
I mean, that's practically what I'm saying. If you have it, and it's not just, I'm not talking from just a financial angle. I'm not talking from a wealth standpoint. I'm talking about knowledge. I'm talking about power. I'm talking about everything, all of the above.
Yeah,
Skills, mannerisms, use them.
Anything, whatever.
Anything. Because, if you think about it from a faith-based aspect, like you said, with the parable, like that's how you should live life. You only get one go at this thing called life. You need to just be able to have fun, enjoy it while you can.
So can I ask you then, what would be your vision for like rubbing that off, I suppose? Or like, you could answer that too, because this is something you've brought up and we've discussed like a couple times. But then in terms of like, what kind of project do you see as worthwhile to pursue that would result in, I don't know, I guess more people like buying into that idea that there's
if someone
fulfillment in purpose in living up to your full potential.
I'm 24 years of age. If someone that's younger than me asks me for anything, I will try to fulfill that request. You know why? Because it's an honor, and it shows respect, and it shows that I'm essentially doing something right.
Yeah, that they look up to you.
And if I can help, and if I can teach you from my mistakes, I'm still a very young individual. I'm still learning every day. But if I can help you get a leg up than you would have already had if you didn't ask one simple question, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. I find a sense of happiness in that. I want to be able to use the experiences that we've had. I mean, we're blessed. Like the things that we were able to do, the things we're able to go through.
Well, because so many people have done exactly that for us.
Exactly. So then why it's paying it forward is a bigger concept than a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, paying it forward, making sure that everyone that's surrounding you is taken care of. And even now, I've been having this mindset recently too. And I know we're gonna have to wrap up here pretty soon, but and I want us to have our last thoughts on this, but I want to see everyone that I've ever crossed paths with, maybe I don't speak to anymore, maybe I just don't, we don't check up on each other. It doesn't matter, negative or positive, even if you're like still in my life.
Just like winning.
I want to see everyone win.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To be able to be a part of history, to be able to be part of someone's story is a beautiful concept in life too. But at the end of the day, you don't have to see, I want to see everyone eat, but it doesn't have to be at my table.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so I think that's something that if you think about, society can be a lot more accepting in a way. And I think that's a concept that everyone needs to ponder, to think about. One of my buddies, actually someone that we all know, talked about what you can control. You know, there's only a certain amount of things you can't control in this world, so then control it. You know. What are your thoughts?
Mel Robbins is a great book. Let them theory.
That's where he got it from. I was like, shout out Mel Robbins. Hey, Mel Robbins, if you are seeing this, we would love to have you as a guest. I'm going, like I said, after every episode, we're gonna name drop one person. I want Kale.
Well, we just did. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Kale, you're coming on here too. Classmate of ours, bad man. But yeah, well, we got Mike Beckham.
Who also, we should probably also shout out, has his own podcast available for consumption via audio, I think, on Spotify.
On Spotify, yeah.
Please check
audio
it out.
only, right?
I was expecting Tom to low-key go a little bit like communist, just be like, so like,
it's episode 3.
We'll
get there.
It's like,
we'll let some stuff.
It's like,
let it
okay, you
slide
have
for
all
now.
this ambition, but it's like, how do you account for all these inefficiencies that leave people behind?
No,
it's like, okay, that's a topic probably for a different
Yeah.
episode.
Well, it's a shorter episode today. I mean, it's kind of.
No,
what do you guys think? I think this setup has done really well,
and
I'm pretty happy with.
We're gonna hear it back, give you the best quality that we can work up.
True, we haven't seen it or heard it yet.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
We could have not been recording this whole time. You just never know.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is a good way to introduce this new environment, introduce a new upgrade to our beautiful baby that's growing. But no, I'm excited. Episode 3, I think that's a wrap.
All right.
And